The subject of today's video has an absolutely crazy story. At one point, he was the number 4 high school player in the country, an Ohio State superstar, and a future NFL player. Unfortunately, he got in repeated trouble and was ultimately banned from playing Big Ten football. He ended up saving his career at a lower level and made one of the most insane comeback stories of the last few years in college football. In today's video, we're to go way back in time and talk about his rise, his career, how he saved it all, and more importantly, what we can all learn from his story. But before we get started, nearly 80% of you guys are not subscribed to the channel, so quickly be sure to hit that subscribe button, leave a like if you want to support today's video, and let me know what player I should cover in my next video. Now, let's get started. So you're probably wondering who the subject of today's video is, and it is none other than former Ohio State and 5-star recruit Noah Spence. But in order to understand his story, we first need to go back in time. I do a lot of research for these videos. I do my best to get the most accurate information for these videos, but I'm not going to claim it is perfect. I'm not trying to talk bad about him, and I'm doing the best job to tell his full story. His story starts in the state of Pennsylvania. Noah is one of 9 sons in his family, but this was no ordinary family. When they moved to Harrisburg in 1998, Noah was only 4 years old, which was much younger than his 3 biological older brothers. So at the time, they decided to surround him with new siblings, and they would adopt 5 more boys because they had a good relationship with the foster care system. The dad said, quote, "We were used to working with kids, and we had a penchant for working and helping children. This is pretty cool," and Noah got to grow up around a couple other kids his age. As the family would grow up, football becomes something they'd all bond over. One neighbor said, quote, "Noah's success is because of what you did in the backyard with them." That was obviously directed at his father, and he directed his kids in both a spiritual and athletic way, and that is why they found success. His dad would encourage the kids to pray in the kitchen in the morning and when they went off to school. He formerly played football at NC State, so they picked up a lot of physical traits from him. He knew how to get his son to a big-time level, and he had him playing football, soccer, basketball, baseball, and even wrestling. This would pay off immensely for Noah, as when he got to Bishop McDevitt High School, he used all his physical tools and mental tricks to become a high school phenom. He ended up becoming a local legend, a national 5-star recruit, and a superhuman-like player with offers from pretty much every school in America. Noah had won so many football awards, and it was for good reason. He was 6'4", 245 pounds, and as a senior had 108 tackles, 12.5 sacks, and 27 tackles for loss. He was the Pennsylvania Gatorade Player of the Year and was wanted by every program in America. But he absolutely despised the recruiting process and was only going to go to a school where things felt like home. He'd eventually shut down his recruitment, choosing Ohio State. He said, quote, "It just felt right. The family atmosphere and the great coaches. The players want to win and the coaches want to win, and they're trying to build something that I want to be a part of, and I wanted to get it out of the way, and it felt right, so why not?" What's wild is that before the season started, he would drop a final 7 schools, but that did not include Ohio State. For a while, Penn State was supposed to be the favorite, but after the whole scandal that shocked the world, he would re-examine his options. What's funny is he even took to Twitter one day saying that he was no longer going to consider Penn State, but so many Penn State fans were encouraging and asking him to overlook the situation that he actually chose to reconsider the Lions. Unfortunately though, he would not end up going there because Ohio State had one factor that Penn State didn't have, and that was Urban Meyer. I really wasn't into Ohio State a lot, but as I got to learn about the staff and what they're trying to do and how close it is to home, it felt like a fit. He became Urban Meyer's first 5-star recruit, and he would secure Spence's commitment after he would go to his state championship game. For Meyer, Noah checked every single box for being a program-building recruit. He loved how Ohio State talked about life and not about football. He said everyone was talking about their own families and everything like regular people. Everything wasn't just about football, and that made me feel comfortable. From the beginning, Spence was never a fan of the recruiting process and would actually avoid calls from college coaches during his senior year. He said he was very relieved that the process had come to an end, and he would not make any other visits after that commitment. He was happy for it to be done, and with all the national attention he got, he probably just wanted to relax and enjoy his last few weeks of high school. The dude was a huge deal. According to 24/7 Sports, Spence was a 5-star recruit, the number 1 defensive end, and the 5th best player in the class of 2012. He also narrowly missed being a part of the top 100 recruits of all time, so there was good reason for him to have a ton of hype going into Ohio State. But how would he end up doing? Noah Spence would arrive on campus with a lot of hype, but he would not do a whole lot as a freshman. I mean, the Buckeyes were so incredibly loaded on that side of the ball, but he just got a chance to play rotational snaps. He finished the year playing in 6 games, finishing with 12 total tackles and 1 sack. All the athletic potential was there, but now he would just need more reps and an opportunity to start. That is exactly what would happen in 2013 as he became a monster. He finished the year with 51 tackles and 8 sacks. He led the Buckeyes to a 12-0 regular season before they'd end up losing to Michigan State in the Big Ten championship game. Spence was an all Big Ten player, and if he could just repeat that season, was probably going to be a top 15 NFL draft pick. Unfortunately though, 2014 was not a good year for Spence. He was ultimately ruled permanently ineligible for failing multiple drug tests. They released a statement saying, quote, Ohio State junior student athlete Noah Spence has been declared permanently ineligible from all intercollegiate athletic competition in the Big Ten. The Ohio State Department of Athletics has assisted Noah and his family leading up to an appeals process that took place today. While we're disappointed in the outcome, we are pleased that Noah has come a long way, and we're very proud of the progress he has made with regard to his health. We will continue to assist Noah through his pursuits and provide the academic resources necessary to help him complete his degree. We're going to talk a lot more about that situation in just a moment, but in his 2 years with Ohio State, he would start 13 games, finishing with 64 tackles, 15.5 tackles for loss, and 9 sacks. He was obviously an all Big Ten player, but stuff that went on behind the scenes would cost him his Buckeyes uniform. Apparently he had failed multiple drug tests, and his drug of choice was Molly. This would start his senior year of high school, his dad would say, as someone had put it in his punch, and Noah, I guess, felt like trying it. He apparently really liked it, and that was that. That substance sprinkled in a bottle of water would become his go-to party drink, and this would continue for years. For most kids, they would have likely gotten caught in high school, but he was such a phenom and such a superhuman-like athlete, he could pretty much play it off as if nothing was happening. The first failed drug test came in December of his sophomore year, and with that came a 3-game suspension. He told everyone that someone slipped something in his drink, and apparently Noah was not known for lying to his dad, so when his father found out, he was so furious that he was ready to sue the Big Ten for suspending him. But then Noah would open up to him, and they would start the cleanup process, but he would fail a second drug test, and then came the permanent Big Ten ban. Luckily though, Ohio State would never give up on him. Urban Meyer called up his old buddy, who was the head coach at Eastern Kentucky, and Spence would ultimately transfer there. The Spence family credits Meyer and the Buckeyes for sticking with them during tough times and helping make sure Noah had the best care and options moving forward. He'd have to move on from big-time football and put all the noise behind him. A lot of people sadly like to root against big-time players, and now Spence would have to bounce back in a major way, which he did, but it wouldn't come without one more hiccup. When he transferred to EKU, he was arrested for public intoxication in May of 2015, but apparently he was drinking wine with a few friends at a house and stepped outside and threw that wine bottle across the street at a trash can, in which he would miss and the glass would shatter on the sidewalk. According to the reports, a cop was standing right next to him, knew who Spence was, and said, quote, "I know you're Noah Spence and you're going to jail." Noah would spend the entire night behind bars, but this is where his comeback story would start. EKU would stand by their new defensive star and were able to help rebuild him as a human and as a football player. He took so many drug tests that they ran out of him, and he was eager to prove he had changed and could dominate football while being clean. In his 1 year with the program, he had 63 tackles, 22.5 tackles for loss, 3 forced fumbles, and 11.5 sacks. Spence was back and better than ever. He said, quote, "I got real caught up in the college lifestyle. Every weekend, I was doing too much. I was young and stupid, and I thought I could go out and party all the time." He ended up having to watch the Ohio State National Championship from the sidelines in 2014, and that would ultimately help him bounce back. He said, quote, "It hurt. It hurt a lot. It helped me to know that I want to experience something like that in my career again. I don't want to mess up anymore or go backwards." He matured and was extremely grateful for the opportunity and got his career back. He said he didn't know if he'd ever be in the situation to play big-time football ever again, and he gives a lot of credit to Eastern Kentucky for bringing him in and helping him get through the process and treating him like family. Despite many thinking Spence couldn't be drafted due to those character concerns, there were just as many people who recognized that he could be the best pure pass rusher in that year's NFL draft. Only draft night would decide his fate though, and what would end up happening to Spence from there. Spence ended up falling out of the first round, but would quickly be taken with the 39th overall pick by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Bucs desperately needed an elite pass rusher, and it seemed like Spence was going to be worth the risk. Spence would end up getting off to a hot start, as in the month of November of his rookie year, he'd have 2.5 sacks and 2 forced fumbles, which would make him the Defensive Rookie of the Month. Unfortunately, it seemed that would be the peak of his NFL career. That season, he finished with 22 tackles, but in 2017, he only played in 6 games, and then in 2018, only played in 12 games. He dealt with a shoulder injury in 2017, but it seems he could just never get going, and eventually the Bucs had to move on. They would waive him right before the 2019 season, and he would have to find a new team. A couple of weeks later, he would sign with the Washington Redskins, but after playing in 7 games, he was also eventually waived. In 2019, he would sign with the Saints, but after bouncing around from IR and the practice squad, he never played a single snap for them and was released. In August of 2021, he would sign with the Cincinnati Bengals and would float around between the practice squad and the active roster. He only played 2 games with the Bengals, totaling 6 tackles. Through 5 years in the NFL, Spence had played in 43 games with 43 tackles and 7.5 sacks. So why did a guy with so much potential like Spence end up not working out? Well, I've come up with 3 reasons. The first one is coaching. Based on everything I've read, it seems as if Spence was put in a position to fail. It was no wonder the Bucs had trouble at pass rushers, as Spence was more of a linebacker and coaches failed to develop him. Secondly, he was one-dimensional. Many scouts were concerned that he was just a pass rusher and was not good against the run and would not be good in other formations on defense, and that sort of happened. All Spence could do was rush the passer, and eventually, if you don't get better, you're going to get cut. So combining bad coaching with really just having one move set Spence up for failure, and thirdly, him getting hurt did not help anything. We all know that in the NFL, it's a brutal game, and one injury can change the course of your career. And I think Spence is just a classic case of a player with a ton of athletic potential who was good enough to push players around through high school and college, but when he got to the NFL, was not properly coached, dealt with injuries, and could never develop into his ceiling. But at the end of the day, I have absolutely no idea, and all I see is a very incredible comeback story. The guy had pretty much every reason to quit, but instead, he blocked out all the noise, got his life together, had a great college career, and ultimately played a couple of years in the NFL, and got to the NFL, which was his ultimate childhood dream. But in terms of his football career, why do you think Spence didn't pan out? If you're an Ohio State, Eastern Kentucky, or Buccaneers fan, be sure to let me know down below. And also, let me know another player I could cover in my next What Happened To video. Before you go, don't forget to also leave a like, subscribe if you're new, and check out all my other videos on the end screen. I hope to see you guys again soon, but until next time, peace.